So good evening. Welcome to this BCSC's 52nd meeting on the topic, intricacies of GST in the hospitality sector. Before we really deep dive into the subject, I also welcome CEO Umang Talati, who is young and real, vibrant, very good on technical parts, and the third generation CA at Talati and Company. I request all, before we deep dive, I request all to rise for institute meeting.
Just hold on.
य एष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति य एष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति कामं 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 कामपुरुषो पुरुषो निर्विमाणः निर्विमाणः तदेव शुक्रं तद्ब्रह्मा तद्ब्रह्मा तदेवामृतमुच्यते तस्मिन् लोकः शतः सर्वे तदूनात्यपि कश्चन एतद्वैता 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 एतद्वैता.
So friends, as I was referring, today we have with us CEO Umang Talati, and the topic is very apt in the current trend, because we know that the COVID impact is the one of the industry which was the topmost, which has got impacted to the highest level, and that is the hospitality industry. That covers varied industries in itself, and we also know, and we now getting the pulses that in 21, whatever the half which is remain, and in 22, this is the industry which is going to be really boom. And from that angle, plus we know that there are so many legacy issues and judgments, and still we are finding ways as to how to tackle those issues in GST as well. So probably few of the judgments and maybe few ARs, though we don't give that credit to ARs, but the how government interprets various terms, be it your reimbursement, or be it package tour. Those were the things in the past, be it VAT or service tax. So I know that Umang being there will handle various intricacies in a very nice way, and it will be all of us. It will be benefited to all of us. Before we go, to introduce the speaker, because few of us know Umang very well, but there are 2 or 3 important announcements. I request Aman to just forecast them. So friends, we have a physical meeting now. You also know that we have started physical, having physical meeting also. So, and we have started opening up. So tomorrow we have a physical meeting, and the topic is amendments and issues under Section 44AD and 44AD of the Income Tax Act, and reporting and issues in reporting under important cases of Form 3CD. The same is at Bhatiyawadi. And we have our in-house speaker C.A. Sharath Seth, and also eminent speaker Sanjeev Lalan to address both the topics. We have another important 2 meetings or seminars jointly with WRC. One is on, so basically the idea is, the flyer is there before you. The idea is that we wanted students also, because many times what happens nowadays, the new students, especially for small and medium firm sizes, we want them to know the basic overview, so that it is sort of an orientation for them And I request all members, because one is on the topic of GST and tally, which is very important and very common topic in almost all the office for our members. So I want all our members to request their articles to come and join in these two seminars jointly with WRC. The fees are quite nominal, and one is in the evening session, and these are also all physical mode, and the second one is a full day where the topics are very common, in the sense that these are very important topics where the articles do only help and support the offices. So if I name few topics: overview of income tax and return filing, which is very important; ROC compliances, because yearly compliances, we know that almost all the offices are catering to various of our clients. Overview of TDS compliances, TDS returns, and advanced Excel and soft skills. So these are all very, very important topics where if the students are equipped, again, it is a benefit to student as well as the office, and to some extent to clients also. So these are few announcements. I think once again I request members to take ask their articles to take active part and send the students, and probably if possible they can also concessionalize, or the firm can bear the cost and send their articles, because it's a training cost ultimately. So once again I request members. So I want more students to appear before that in the seminar. Coming to this today's topic and speaker, Umang Talati, I request Aman to briefly introduce Umang sir.
Thank you, Dushyant sir, for giving me the opportunity to introduce the speaker for the day. Members, today we have a very young and a very talented CA with us, CA Umang Talati. He is a FCA and has also completed MCom. Now, coming to his experience and professional contributions, after completing CA in November 2015, he joined his father and uncle's firm as a manager in their practice in the name of Talati and Company, Chartered Accountants. He is the third generation in the family to have joined the firm, started in the year 1952. He was inducted as partner in the firm in the year 2020. And he is involved in GST impact analysis of clients in manufacturing and service sector. He was also involved in designing and developing the module on the legal front in helping an entity qualify as GSP appointed by GSTN. He also assisted the GSP in developing various applications to enable them to roll out various applications. He is actively associated with IT teams of clients in preparing them for GST rollout. He is a regular speaker, as also acted as group leader for various sessions as GST PM, BCAS, study circles of WRC, of ICI and CTC. He is also an active participant of the BCAS intensive indirect tax GST study group. He is currently a committee member of the GST PM and the co-convener of the seminar and workshop committee, as well as the referencer committee of the GST PM. He is also currently a committee member of the Indirect Tax Committee at CTC and the co-convener of the Law and Representation Committee of the CTC. He has been involved in various transaction advisory involving VAT and service tax implications. He is also involved in conducting VAT audit across various sectors. He has also authored a short publication titled Impact of GST on Hospitality Industry, which was published in 2018 by GST PM. He has also contributed several articles in GST Review, etc. He also had the opportunity to study at the University of California, Berkeley in the United States for 2 certificate courses, namely Investments and International Trade. And apart from all this, he also loves to travel and is an amateur photographer. I welcome you, Umang ji. And as it is a virtual seminar, we would like to offer you an e-memento as a token of appreciation.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome,
Thank you. Thank
welcome.
you.
And also, apart from this, BCSC always contributes rupees 500 on behalf of the speaker to the CABF Benevolent Fund. So today we are going to contribute 500 rupees on your behalf.
Thank you, sir.
And without wasting any more time, Umangji, you can start with your session for the day.
So only one request. Umang was asking whether the Q&A will be taken during the session or how you'd like to take up. That I think we'll see, and we'll request members to give their queries on Q&A, and respectively, if Bijal feels that it is apt for the topic which is going on or case studies, Bijal can take up. Otherwise, we'll take up at the end. So that is what the SOP is for today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll just share my screen.
Yeah.
I hope it's visible now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, at the outset, I'd like to thank Borivali CP Study Circle for giving me this opportunity, because Borivali CP Study Circle has always been special for me. It gave me an opportunity in, I think, 2018 or so, to talk together in tandem with my father. This I believe has never happened with me, at least, and we got an opportunity to talk together. And coincidentally, last session was his, and I am following up with this session. So Borivali always is special to me. Secondly, I would also special thanks to Dushyant Bhai and Lalit Bhai for thinking of me on this topic. So coming to the topic proper, so the agenda for today is, what I've done is I have bucketed it into 4 parts. We'll be taking restaurants and outdoor catering, hotel accommodation, then take a break, talk about the COVID-19 pandemic, and then, if time permits, take tours and travels industry. In each topic, we will be discussing the current scenarios and the provisions, along with some various issues. As you know, and as Dushyant Bhai was pointing out, the COVID-19 has severely impacted the hospitality industry, and right now it is coming back. It is coming back online, and they are finding new ways to encourage people to come out and visit various places, stay in various hotels, or ask them to come back to the restaurants. So we'll try to take up these new concepts as well. Coming to restaurants, first we'll talk about the relevant provisions. We have Schedule 2 in the GST Act, which talks about the activities or transactions which are to be considered as goods or services. So in Schedule 2.6, it says composite supply. The following composite supply shall be treated as supply of services. Namely, we have point B, which says supply by way of or as part of any service or in any other manner whatsoever of goods, being food or any other article for human consumption, or any drink other than alcoholic liquor for human consumption, where such supply or service is for cash, deferred payment, or other valuable consideration. Now, 2 things we can interpret from this. One is, the Act in itself recognizes this as a composite supply. Therefore, the question of this being questioned as a mixed supply, should we introduce some other elements to it, does not arise. So this continues to be a composite supply. Secondly, it is clearly saying that this is going to be treated as services. So we do not need to find what is principal. Is food the principal or the service element the principal? They are saying, and they have made it clear, that this is a composite supply which is to be treated as supply of services. They have defined the restaurant service as in explanation 4 to the notification. Restaurant service means supply by way of or as part of any service of goods, being food or any other article for human consumption or any drink, provided by restaurant, eating joint, including mess, canteen, whether for consumption or away from the premises. So basically, it is also extending it to home delivery or door delivery, where even if you are consuming an item, say there is a thela or a vada pav stall, and you just buy the vada pav from the stall, and there is a small place where you can stand and eat, that is also considered as on or away from the premises, and you may be in a position to consider it as restaurant service. There are other things also to be factored into, but you may consider it as a restaurant service. I am quickly going through the provision so then we can take time and discuss the issues. Please let me know if I'm going faster than I should. Coming to the rate of tax, now, if you recall, when GST was introduced, they came out with various categories, that restaurants serving liquor, restaurants not serving liquor, restaurants having AC facility, restaurants without AC facility. They created these various sections and really confused everyone. Where should you have one thing and not the other? What was the rate of tax to be applied? So eventually they started trying to make it less complicated. They introduced the term declared tariff in for restaurants also. There were some issues. So now, with effect from 1/10/2019, they came out with a concept of specified premises. It continues with the declared tariff concept, but tried to clarify it further. So I'll just read out what a specified premise is. Specified premise means premise providing hotel accommodation service having declared tariff of any unit of accommodation above 7,500 rupees per unit per day or equivalent. So at any given point of time during the year, if you are providing an hotel unit, if you have hotel accommodation and you are providing any unit of accommodation over 7,500, then you come under specified premises. Then you are allowed to charge 9% and claim ITC. Other than that, in all other scenarios, it is 2.5% where no ITC is allowed. There are these controversies which were there about declared tariff, what amount to be taken, whether the declared tariff which is shown on the website, whether the declared tariff which is shown on the backboard when you are actually checking in. All these issues still continue while the department would like to consider them the highest which is given. However, one which is generally offered should be considered as a declared tariff. The next question would be, is this 5% where ITC is not allowed? Is it a mandatory rate or is it optional for me? Now, going to the rate notification, in the main entry of the rate notification, in subclause 6, accommodation, food, beverage and service other than 1 to 5 above, which talks about the 18% rate, they have given an explanation. The explanation says, for the removal of doubt, it is hereby clarified, supplies covered by items 2, 3, 4, 5 in column 3 shall attract CGST against the item in column 4, subject to the conditions specified against them in column 5, which is a mandatory rate and shall not be levied at the rate as specified under this entry. Which means there is a genuine attempt to say that, everything will come under 5%, and unless and until you are under a specified premise, you cannot avail this 18%. So this is not like, say, GTA or transportation service where they have given an option. Now the option, again, mind you, is given in column 5 and not in the main column. It is given in the condition column. So if you refer to the condition column, there they say 5% without ITC or 12% with ITC. So here there is a deliberate intention to specify that this 5% rate is mandatory, and unless and until you are in a specified premises, you will have to pay tax under 5%. The other question which comes up here is, if I am paying 5% tax and not availing input tax credit, does it really make sense of instead of doing this, go for a composition scheme? Now, my view to this matter is, there are more restrictions in composition scheme other than the point of filing returns in a quarterly manner. Everything else is more restrictive in nature. Say, going ahead, you are, let's say, located at Dhanu and you want to provide delivery to someone across the border in Vapi. You cannot, because in composition scheme there are these restrictions in place. Say these hotels and all, they also have to keep some lawyers and everything else. So these attract reverse charge, and therefore again that composition cannot fall into place. Say you are on the highway where you are a small dhaba and you are also selling small goods. So then again, dividing it, creating two different entities for it does not make sense. It is better that you don't opt for composition and continue with this. Going to the issues, in the issues, what I've done is I have divided them in various aspects. And also when I talk about ITC, I'll be talking of when the restaurant is charging 18%. So that is when we'll be talking of the ITC aspect to it. Now in restaurants, first we'll talk about the tips, the service charges which are collected. Now there can be various types of tips or the service charge which is collected. Tips which are voluntary in nature. Now voluntary, there is no requirement for the person to give the tip. There is no service which is expected in return. It is just out of your own volition that you're giving, and therefore there is no service which is happening. Since there is no service, the question of adding them in the valuation for paying output tax should not arise. However, at the same time, if you are charging something on the invoice which is mandatory, say on the restaurant door you have written that we charge as a policy 10% service charge, then it is being added, and therefore you will have to add it in the valuation and offer it for tax. Now I am aware there is a Supreme Court judgment which says that you have an option to pay service charge. However, we all know the ground reality. The ground reality is that they are charging and we always end up paying this. So this has to be added to the valuation of the restaurant, and tax should be discharged on it. Then what if the customer, instead of paying cash, is while swiping the card adds 10%, or let's say adds some 50 rupees to the bill while paying it. Now this is in tip. How are you to value this? Now it depends on how the restaurant is treating this. If the restaurant is just collecting the money on behalf of the waiters or the servers and distributing it without retaining any amount, then it continues to be voluntary in nature, and the question of levying tax on it does not arise. However, if say the restaurant retains 10% of the service charge or of these tips and then distributes the rest, then this will and should be added into the valuation and offered for taxation. Now, what about the container and packing charges? If say container packing charges, they add say 10 rupees per container they are adding. Obviously, it is composite in nature. It is in addition to the service that you're rendering. So all these container packing charges also should be added to the valuation and offered for tax. Let's say I'm not adding and giving it. Can you consider it to be free? Can it be considered, is it gratuitous in nature? So if I am a big 5-star restaurant, or say I go to JW Marriott and there I am asking them to please pack it, and there they are not charging for the packing container. Is it free? Will they be eligible for input tax credit, or will it be hit by 17(5)? So it is obvious that while considering the costing or while setting the price of something, I have always considered this. There is nothing free in the world. Therefore, considering this and this, considering thing as a supply of free container should not be, is incorrect and should not be considered. Therefore, it should not restrict the restaurant from claiming input tax credit. Similarly, delivery charges are to be added, as we talked of, on or away from the premises. So even door delivery or is considered. So all this will also be added to the valuation. Now, here we are talking of restaurants who are providing the delivery and not Ola, I meant Swiggy and Zomato. Swiggy and Zomato, they are actually providing service to the restaurant, and therefore, for the delivery charges, they are also charging the restaurant. So there they are charging 18% to the restaurant, or if they are recovering from the customer, they are charging separately 18% from the customer. So generally what is happening is Swiggy or Zomato charges delivery charges to the restaurant and service charges to the customer. So on these service charges, they are charging 18% because there is nowhere related to the restaurant service. Now coming to, let's say, a buffet or a combo meal where a single price is charged plus tax. Say in a first scenario, we are talking of food plus a drink, which is non-alcoholic in nature, and a dessert. So in this, how is this to be valued? Is there a reason or is there a requirement to artificially bifurcate it because there is a food and a drink element to it? Now, this is a composite supply. Restaurant service is considered as a composite supply. While you are providing a restaurant service in buffet or meal, there it is a combo package which you are providing, which includes food, drink, and dessert. Since the drink is non-alcoholic in nature, there is no need to bifurcate it. It continues to be a restaurant service, and therefore accordingly tax has to be discharged. Now the fun comes when you bring into the mix alcoholic drink. Now alcoholic drink cannot be put to tax under GST. Everyone knows that they don't have powers to levy tax on it. Now, do you need to artificially bifurcate it? Is there a mechanism which is given in place in GST for you to do this? Now, we have a Supreme Court judgment of Associated Hotels where they say that if the mechanism fails, the levy has to fail. While fighting it out, this is all well and good. But practically what is happening is there are two things which come into play. One is who holds the license for providing this alcoholic drink. Generally, these restaurants have two licenses. One is for providing alcohol and the other is for the restaurant services. So generally they are cutting two invoices and they are artificially bifurcating. So while doing the costing, they have made some costing and they have bifurcated it already. Say, let's take an example of 1500 rupees is being charged plus tax, or let's say 1500 rupees is being charged, where they have said that 1200 is for food and the rest would be for drinks. Then here they are offering tax or VAT on the remaining and only GST on 1200. The second question which comes here is VAT is often based on MRP, or there is a specific different formula which is given. So in Maharashtra it is say MRP based. So can this valuation also affect GST valuation or vice versa? So say my calculation, we were saying 1200 and 300 is for drinks. If based on MRP, I am paying VAT on say 250 rupees. Can the GST authorities come to me, say that, you are paying VAT on 250 rupees, therefore your GST valuation becomes 1250. Can they come in? So here, see, there is a mechanism given in VAT and that is why you are coming at 250. Your costing and your bifurcation is always there for 1200 and 300. Therefore, you should be in a position to justify it. Secondly, transaction value is what is to be taxed in GST. If the price is the sole consideration, here a restaurant is providing to some other person, they are not related to each other. So price is also the sole consideration. Therefore, the question whether they can question that valuation is also not tenable. They have to, you have to discharge tax on 1200 only. Coming to the fact that what about the things or the GST input things which are used in making the alcoholic drink? Will the credit to this extent be allowed? Now it is obvious that that credit cannot be availed, and proportionately you will have to reverse it if you are paying tax on 18% on the food. Going ahead, we'll talk of set thali. Again, a single price is charged, which is inclusive of tax, where you have a limited meal, say 2 farsan, 2 sweet, roti, chawal, that is a fixed quantity, plus a packaged water, a packaged drinking water bottle. So they are charging this. Now again, this is composite in nature. you cannot say then this is a separate supply of drinking water bottle and meal. So it is a composite supply and therefore has to be offered for tax accordingly. Say you pay 50 rupees extra and add an extra sweet to it. Does this change the nature of the contract? The answer is no. It continues to be a restaurant service where you are given the option to take extra sweet or not, where you are exercising that right, and it was already offered to you. So therefore this question cannot arise. It is not supply of sweet to you. It continues to be a restaurant service and therefore should be offered for tax accordingly. Similarly, we were talking of the container. Here is the water bottle given free of cost? The answer again is no. Obviously it is part of the costing, it is part of the price, and if you are eligible for input tax credit, this disallowance cannot arise. So wherever I am talking of input tax credit, it is only where talking about restaurants or outdoor caterers located in a specified premises paying tax at 18%. I hope I am going okay. I'm not going as fast, right?
No, perfectly.
Yeah. Now we'll talk of special events. Say there is a Diwali or a Christmas party where there is food, there is drink, and there is entertainment. How is this to be valued? Now the question is, how do you look at this party? Are you looking at it as an entertainment event, or are you looking at it as a place where you're going for eating food and drinks, where there is some entertainment which is present? So the dominant intention test has to be brought into here. How the recipient of service is going to be perceiving this service is important. So let's say it is a large restaurant where there is some song and dance happening because it is Diwali or party. Then you have to, it depends on contract to contract, but you can consider this transaction as a restaurant service where there is an element of entertainment. However, let's say it is let's say in a club where there is a specific Christmas party which is arranged and people are going for the party and not for the food and drink. Food and drink is incidental. Then it becomes admission to an event and therefore should be offered for tax based on that rate of tax. This being mixed supply cannot be triggered. You have to look at it, continues to be a composite. It is just how you are perceiving the service. The dominant intention here is very important. Again, if you add alcoholic drink to this, some artificial bifurcation will have been made where you will have to discharge VAT on that amount and accordingly pay GST on the amount which you bifurcated as the GST taxable value. If there are any questions, we can take up. Going ahead, let's say there is a sponsorship which is happening. So say there is a cricket tournament which is happening in a gymkhana or a club where someone is offering sponsorship, where there, along with it there is some food and drink. So on what value is this amount sponsorship, or on what value is the tax to be paid? You are charging say 2,500 rupees from each member. On what value is the tax to be discharged? Do you deduct the sponsorship amount or do you pay a tax on the 2,500? Now valuation, the section 15(2) clearly says everything is to be included and you have to pay tax on the gross, all incidental expenses. Even if someone is sponsoring it, it does not mean that you pay tax on 2,000. You have to pay tax on the 2,500. What about say discount vouchers? Say you purchase some restaurant's discount voucher, which the face value is say 500. So for example, you bought McDonald's discount voucher for 450. The face value of which is 500. On what value is the tax to be discharged? Now this is a voucher. Again, transaction value is paramount in GST. Price is the sole consideration. Therefore, when selling the voucher, you are selling it for 450. Therefore, tax is to be discharged on 450 and not 500. There is no discount of 50 rupees which is offered. This is just the transaction value of 450 which is done. Ahead, when say the customer comes and uses it in McDonald's, it is just a mode of utilizing, a mode for accepting payment, and should not have any criteria in it. The time of supply and everything for voucher will be present in this, and accordingly tax will have to be discharged. So if it is identifiable at the time of sale, you will have to discharge tax today. If it is not identifiable, then on the date of redemption. So like we were discussing the mode of payment. So say Sodexo, these vouchers, everything you get, these are just a mode of payment and cannot make a difference in the tax liability. When the transaction has actually happened, that is paramount, and that is on which you actually will have to offer tax. Coming to combo meals, now we were talking of McDonald's. So McDonald's offers Happy Meal, where you are getting a burger plus an aerated drink, say Coke. Is this a mixed supply or a composite supply? What is more dominant, burger or drink? Again, just the mere fact that an aerated drink, while purchasing an aerated drink, it also attracts cess and everything, does not make it two separate supplies. It is a combo of food which is being offered, and it continues to be a restaurant service. Therefore, you have to offer tax at 5%. Now, say in a scenario, you are at, say, Taj Hotel, where you order this burger and aerated drink combo. Now, Taj is in a specified premises, so they are eligible for input tax credit. Can they claim the input tax credit on the aerated drink? Aerated drink, they are charging GST on the normal portion, plus they are charging cess. So can they claim input tax credit of the cess? Now, if you go through the Cess Act, there they say basically if you are paying cess on the output side, then and only then you are eligible for input tax credit of cess. So even though you will be eligible for input tax credit on the normal amount of GST which you pay, you will not be eligible for the credit of cess in this. Coming to cover charges, now there can be various different cover charges. Say there is a cover charge which is non-refundable in nature. It is collected at the entrance of the club. So it for, say, it is only entry for stags or couples, and it is non-refundable. Say 1,000 rupees is being charged as a cover, and you cannot even redeem it inside. Then this is like access to an event or admission to an event, and tax has to be discharged based on that admission to event category. However, if it is, say, redeemable in nature, you are just collecting it in advance. Say now 2,000 rupees you are taking. This is redeemable. Inside you can redeem it for food, or you can redeem it for alcohol, for example. Today, when you are collecting, or right now when you are collecting this cover charge, you cannot determine or identify on what you are going to be paying tax. So this is just collection in advance. When the actual redemption happens, at that point of time, you will accordingly cut an invoice and offer tax. So if it is used in food, you will have to pay GST. If it is used in liquor, you will have to discharge VAT on it. Now, let's say in a scenario, this was 2,000 rupees cover, entire thing was redeemable. From this 2,000, only 1,750 was utilized. 250 rupees was remaining. This is not utilized. Now there is a condition which says that you have to use this cover charge today itself. It cannot be carried forward to tomorrow. So now this 250 rupees is non-refundable and forfeited by the restaurant. The restaurant will obviously on this 250 rupees pay income tax or as other income. Now the question is this 250 rupees which is there with you, is it subject to GST or not? Now this is a question. Can you say that this 250 rupees is subject to GST? My argument in this is there a supply which is happening? The answer is no. If there is no supply, how can GST be triggered? The department will be of the opinion that you are tolerating them not utilizing this money. Now this is very absurd. You offered them this, it was always given. They were aware that should this 250 rupees not be used, it will be forfeited. How can it be say that you are tolerating someone's act? And therefore, according to me, there is no service or there is no supply which is happening. This is just an other income and cannot be subject to GST. Coming to other incomes of these restaurants, home delivery, we talked of, if it is being done by a respective staff of the restaurant, then it is to be added in the valuation. Yes. Now, we have two case laws to consider. One, which is of Bombay High Court in quality ice cream, where quality it was held that if it is in the vicinity of the restaurant, it is considered as an extension of the service, and therefore it continues to be a restaurant service. Now this question is not there only because clearly in the definition of restaurant it says on or away from the premises. Similarly, we have a Maharashtra State Tribunal decision of Jumbo Vada Pav. Now this is in fact our own my office's judgment. Unfortunately, we lost this, where we were trying to say that this sale of vada pav from the counter is actually just sale of food and not restaurant. However, it was held that this is a restaurant service just because there is a platform which is provided and person can eat there. They said that it is a restaurant service and therefore should be subject to service tax also. So in this now this is in our favor per se, and it is a restaurant service. What if you are using an agency, say you are using Zomato, Swiggy, where the bill is of 1,000 rupees. From this 1,000 rupees, the delivery agent will collect entire 1,000 rupees, will cut his share of 150 rupees and pay 850 rupees to the restaurant. Now in this, how is this to be considered? The restaurant is providing service of 1,000 rupees only. The restaurant service continues to be 1,000 rupees only. There are two services which are happening. One, from the restaurant to the customer, and two, from the agency or home delivery agent or home delivery company to the restaurant. They are two separate. Just because the payment is netted off and provided does not make it a single supply. 1,000 will be offered for tax as restaurant, and the 150 as delivery charges or some services which is being provided by the Zomato or Swiggy, and accordingly be taxed accordingly. What if, say, home delivery you are adding, you will add these charges to the customer and also offer the amount as for restaurant services. Coming to other, say there are franchisee incomes. Domino's, McDonald's, they are all franchisees. So where the valuation or the emoluments which are to be given by the franchisee to the franchisor is fixed, say it is a lump sum one-time fee which is to be paid, or it is a lump sum plus a percentage of sale. So based, say if you do 10 lakh of sale, 1% is to be given to the franchisor. So these are just ways to calculate the consideration for franchisee income, and it cannot be equated with the restaurant service, and therefore this is a separate service in itself and should be offered for tax accordingly at 18%. What about these window display or promotional income? Say you are the Coke comes to your restaurant and says you are supposed to hang these. We will give you these billboard, and we will give you a visi-cooler. You can stack all drinks there, and over and above we are giving this much amount to you. So all this promotional income which comes to the restaurant, this is a separate service. This cannot be equated as a restaurant service and accordingly should be offered for taxation. Then we have cocktails. Now cocktail, the base of which always is alcoholic in nature, so you are paying VAT on it, but it also includes certain GSTable items. Say some juice is used, some Coke or something is added to the alcohol. Does it change the nature of the transaction? Is GST triggered here? Now the answer is, see, it is a cocktail. Person is having it for the alcohol, and therefore it cannot be subject to GST. However, if this is being provided in a specified premises and you are eligible for input tax credit, to the extent of goods on which you have paid GST, you will not be eligible for input tax credit. Now we have certain combo offers. Say Sunday brunch is being given by, say, a 5-star hotel, where you have access to the swimming pool along with the restaurant. So basically they are charging, say, 2,500 rupees, where you can use it for the food, and also as an added benefit they are giving access to the swimming pool. Does this make it a mixed service, or is this continues to be a restaurant service? Now, according to me, this is just an inducement which is being done so that a person comes, that you have also access to the swimming pool. They just want to promote their restaurant, and this is just a kind of a gimmick. So this continues to be a restaurant service and cannot be said to be a mixed supply. Now let's say there is an adventure park, and in adventure park it includes a meal. Is it a mixed supply? Now adventure park, you are going as a person, the dominant intention, again, you are going to enjoy the adventure park and not to have food and everything. Including some coupons of food in it does not change the nature of the transaction. It continues to be admission to an entertainment event, and therefore cannot be equated as a mixed supply. Should you advise that you should invoice separately for food and separately for liquor? Now this is practically always asked, whether you should bifurcate or not. It is always better that you bifurcate it, because there are a lot of other licenses which are being required. If you hold a liquor license, there are other things which are needed to be completed. So it is always better to have separate invoicing. Again, now let's say on the liquor bid itself, you are also charging service charges. Now this service charges is again a GST-able item, and you have to offer GST on it. You cannot say that this is part of the VAT bill and therefore cannot be subject to GST. This is incorrect. There is a service element to it, and that is not out from GST. Only alcoholic liquor for human consumption is out. So should you in a case be charging service charges on liquor as well, so that has to be offered for GST. Now coming sale at counter, over the counter, chips and drinks. Now there is a very fine line between a restaurant service and a sale of goods. So let's say there is a Irani cafe, where at the counter itself you can purchase some chips, you can purchase some biscuits. The difference is so minute. Say for example, if you go to the counter and buy some chips and drinks, chips or biscuits, it is sale of food. However, if you are sitting on a table and they open the same packet of biscuits and give it to you, it becomes a restaurant service. So it is a very fine line, if you say, between sale at a counter and service at a restaurant. So based on how it is provided, you have to determine whether it is actually sale of goods or service. Now coming to the recent clarification which was made by the CBIC. So on 6th October, they came out with a clarification based on the 45th GST Council meeting, where they said, the cloud kitchen, it is a restaurant. Now cloud kitchen basically function in such a manner, it is like a dark kitchen. It is just providing ready-made food to the restaurant or to the customer. Now let's take 3 scenarios. First scenario, so right now the clarification says that cloud kitchen is a restaurant and it is to be offered for tax at 5%. Now let's say a scenario where the cloud kitchen is only doing home delivery and it is supplying to customers directly. Now this kind of is a welcome clarity where they are saying that it continues to be a restaurant and therefore will attract 5%. My only question here is, the cloud kitchen only has a license to prepare food. It does not have a license to serve food. Can this going ahead create some problem? We don't know. However, since this is a circular which is in our favor and it is being it is binding on the department, I hope that this can continue and 5% will be levied. If it is being supplied to the customer through the restaurant, so let's say I am a large restaurant and to cater to say different areas, I have cloud kitchens in all those areas, so and it is supplying on my behalf, then it continues to be a cloud kitchen and it will attract tax at 5%. However, if I am supplying to the franchisees for further supply, so for example, I am say a kitchen which is creating dough for Domino's, there is no sale which has happened already. I'm just selling the dough or sending the dough to all these different areas. Then this is stock transfer, and therefore this cannot be considered as a restaurant service or something. So if I am a different company and I'm actually providing it to say a Domino's in Borivali, a Domino's in Kandivali, and sending it to these franchises, it is a supply of goods and it is like a supply of dough, and therefore cannot be considered as a cloud kitchen. Now we have a very interesting discussion on ice cream parlor. The CBIC circular straight away says that ice cream parlor, since there is no manufacture which is taking place at the ice cream parlor, it is a supply of goods and therefore will attract 18% GST. Now we have various judgments. There is a Bombay High Court judgment also which says that even though that judgment was on it is on right to eat, they are not distinguishing it between food or not. Now my only concern here is, even churning is actually manufactured. So if at the ice cream parlor, now we have a new concept, I think we have Naturals now, where they are making the ice cream at that place. There are churners which are continuously on. So there is some element of manufacture which is happening, and I still feel that they have created this mess even further by saying it is 18% and it is actually sale of goods. The question will also come, let's say now the ice cream parlor is providing sundae. So there are 2 scoops of ice cream, there is some wafer biscuit added, there is some sprinkles which are added, and there is waffle biscuit which is made and then given. Is this a restaurant service or is this ice cream parlor? Here they are not providing any clarity. Similarly, a sundae in a restaurant and a sundae in an ice cream parlor will attract different rate of taxes. There is no clarity on this, and they have made this mess even bad. Similarly, for a faluda in a restaurant and a faluda provided in an ice cream parlor, how will you distinguish it? Can you continue to say it is sale of goods? I still have my doubts here, and I still say that there is an element of manufacture which is happening. Blindly saying that this is just scooping and providing and it just involves a small element of service, but it is actually a sale of goods, is I believe incorrect, and only the courts will determine in the future. Going ahead to catering, if we have any questions in restaurants, or we can take up now and then go ahead to catering if you want.
Bijal, you can take up. There are 1 or 2 questions.
Yeah, there's only one question we have right now on restaurant service. So it's saying that some restaurants provide food to their staff in lieu of salary. So do such transaction has any GST implications as such?
So there is, I believe, a clarification which is issued, which says that providing, so it is actually on a canteen, where canteen concessional rate of canteen or concessional amount charged in a canteen to employees is not a supply and therefore cannot be subject to tax. Similarly, here you cannot subject it to tax, even if, let's say, you are saying that there is some element of service which is happening between an employer and an employee. Can you not argue that this is below 50,000 rupees and therefore should not trigger Schedule 1? So according to me, this is not actually a service. This is it should not be offered for taxation.
And one more small question was that out of the tips, what is retained and what is distributed? It's typically not documents or fact based. So is there any way to audit something, and will there be any GST implication of the same?
So now the way to audit it is basically based on the amount which is collected in the bank. And obviously, this being such a cash rich, it is not possible to track. So I don't know. See, tips possibly, at least the ones which are done through credit card and on, you will be able to do, and also which is collected in a tip box, because they every day they have to write an entry on how much tips they have collected if they are retaining. So based on that, something you will be able to track. Obviously, not everything should be probably be able to track if they are, slightly retaining some more than they should.
Okay. And in case where the delivery is done by third party and it was paid directly by the customer, so will such charges will be added as a part of transaction value or should not be considered?
So now here you have to see the privity of the contract. The privity of the contract, there are two contracts which are actually happening. First contract is between the customer and the restaurant. So say 1,000 rupees. So 1,000 rupees pay, you offered restaurant service and paid tax at 5%. Now, even though it is given or done through a third party, that does not matter. Third party is charging you. So obviously the prices that you are charging to the customer is inclusive. There is for a fact that you are going to be using some other person or some agency. So your price will always be different. So and we'll always cater to it. So just to give you an example, other than these large restaurants, say there are these thelas and vada pav stalls and all who are actually providing providing or sending goods through Zomato and Swiggy. So if you are to actually go to the hotel and or restaurant and purchase it from there, they will be charging 15 rupees for the vada pav. But because the delivery is there, they are actually charging 18 rupees. So there is some calculation which is happening, and the price will always cater to it. So you will not be required to add that amount.
Okay. And so one last question. In case of ice cream parlor, do we have to switch from 5% to 18% wages clarification, or we can continue at 5% saying that it comes under services?
So now, based on this clarification, there are AARs and case laws also in GST. AARs basically which is saying that it attracts 18%. So they are of always the intention that this is not a restaurant only or at all.
Right.
The ice cream, they are only talking of ice cream parlor here. So
Yeah.
they are saying that this is not a restaurant at all, and it cannot be considered as a restaurant. So this 5% is not available to you. You pay tax at 18% and you claim credit.
Right.
That is what they are trying to say. Now that I believe only courts can say. Right now they are of the firm opinion that it is 18%. So if you go and see naturals and all, if you were to purchase ice cream from there, they are actually charging 18%.
Right.
So this they have probably changed 1.5 years ago. I think after the AAR came in, and then after that they have been started charging 18%. So all these ice cream parlors have actually started paying tax at 18.
Okay. Thank you so much. I think we can continue with the next session.
Yeah. So now we'll go for outdoor catering or banquets. I believe the entry switched. I'll come back to the previous. So in outdoor catering, they have defined outdoor catering. One thing to be noted is this word is only outdoor catering, but it also includes indoor catering. So outdoor catering means supply by way of or as part of any service of goods, being food or any other article for human consumption or any drink at exhibition hall, event, conference, marriage hall, and other outdoor or indoor functions that are event based and occasional in nature. So any outdoor or indoor function can fall under this outdoor catering concept. They are also provided with renting facility, without renting facility, that also is given in the rate structure. Again, the concept of specified premises is brought in here. To make it easier, I have made it into 3 sections. Excuse me. So I made it into 3 sections. Say it is any person, say there is an XYZ caterer. He is providing this outdoor catering at a premise which is other than a specified premises, then it is 5% without ITC. However, in any other scenario, it will always be 18% where ITC is going to be allowed. So say any person providing at a specified premises. So if the catering is happening at a Taj or a Marriott or say Leela, then it is a specified premises, then it is going to be 18% irrespective of the person who is providing the outdoor catering service. If it say they are all in, if it is provided at a premises which is other than a specified premises, however, the supplier is actually the person who has a hotel accommodation at a specified premises. So for example, Taj Caterer. Taj Caterer is actually is providing hotel accommodation, is also situated at the hotel premises, but for this specific event is going out and say doing it at some other hall which is not at not a specified premises, still it will attract 18% tax. Similarly, say the large 5-star hotel or specified premises has outsourced its catering to someone from outside. So that person from outside is coming in, say ABC Caterer, he is coming in and he's set up his location at the specified premises. Even those people, since they are located in the specified premises, they will attract tax at 18%, even if the service is being provided outside the specified premises. Now coming to the various issues about say banquet, where billing is done separate for hall rent and food, or a combined billing is done for hall and food. Now here you have to look at it in 2 ways. If you are going to be eligible for input tax credit for the hall rent as well as the food, you can opt for a single bill. Why I am telling you this is, so for example, Borivali CP Study Circle is having an event tomorrow where they are going to be having food also for the students, where the announcement was where 300 rupees including snacks. Since you are charging the delegates, there is an exception in 17.5 where says if you are using the service as a composite or mixed supply or as the same supply as an element of an outward supply, then input tax credit is not to be disallowed and you are eligible for credit. So if Borivali CP Study Circle is having this event and you are charging the delegates, then you can have hall rent and food in the same bill and does not matter to you. However, if it is a free event and it is open to all, then it is better that you have hall rent separate and food bill separate. So on food bill, it will be outdoor catering and accordingly will be taxed say 5%, and hall rent, it is renting of an premises and therefore it will attract separate, because there are 2 separate contracts, 2 separate billings, and it will automatically attract tax of hall rent, and Borivali CP will be eligible for input tax credit. Now let's say because you are a club member or a Gymkhana member, you are getting an additional discount of 4,000 rupees. So hall rent is 20,000 rupees. Because you are a member, you are getting member discount of 4,000 rupees. Does it make a difference? On what amount do you pay tax? Do you have to pay tax on 20,000 or do you have to pay tax on 16,000? Now, because you are a member, you are basically getting this facility. Actually, this facility is not generally offered to anyone outside. So you are a class of person on which there is a separate billing. So it's like, say, a hotel or a hotel where accommodation is given, where corporate billing is obviously or always at a lower cost than a single booking. So this is like that. Just because you are a member does not mean that, you know, this is addition. This will attract tax at the gross amount of 20,000, but it continues to be taxed at 16,000. Now, going ahead to events, say a per person rate is negotiated. It includes rent for the utensils, mock-ups, props, as well as the food. So in, say, a marriage function, along with the food, they are also charging for the utensils, the mock-ups, everything. So just because not a lump sum is decided and a per person cost is decided does not change the nature of the contract. It continues to be outdoor catering, and therefore, you know, this will attract tax of outdoor catering only. However, if you add decoration of the hall, now decoration of the hall is generally the caterer is separate and decorator is separate. They are never combined. So generally it never is combined. So there is a possibility here that, you know, this can be viewed as a mixed supply, because decorator, it is never done in the normal course of business. It is not normally bundled. Therefore, this can be viewed as a mixed supply, and caterer, if he is doing it, he may not be eligible for 5% rate, and in fact will have to pay tax on 18% here. In order to avoid confusion, it is always better that, you know, it is a separate contract and separate billing is happening. Now for restaurant and caterer, the inward supplies, say I am at a specified premises and eligible for input tax credit. So the free bottled water which is given to the people who are coming to the restaurant, or the capital expenditures of kitchen equipment, linen, carpet, cutlery, serveware, furniture fitting, everything is eligible for input tax credit. Initially in service tax and all, if you recall, it was restricted to the food, or it is restricted to kitchen equipment. That restriction is not there in 18%. There are no conditions. So you are eligible for input tax credit. Obviously, everything is subject to 17(5). So land and building, you cannot take input tax credit if it is capitalized. To the extent it is not capitalized and expensed out in the P&L, you are allowed based on the proviso to 17(5) and D. So repairs and renovations, you will be eligible, but any capital amounts which are done to the land and building, which basically improves the life of the asset, you will not be eligible for input tax credit. All these decorations, artifacts, everything will be there. All credit will be allowed. Now coming to delivery van and delivery scooter. Delivery van or pickup truck is used for purchase of raw materials, and delivery scooter is used for supplying or delivering food, whether input tax credit is allowed or not. Now, this in 17(5), the exclusion criteria says that, you know, you are not eligible for input tax credit on motor vehicle unless, so exception ka exception, where they are saying you are eligible for credit if you are doing for transportation of goods. So here, this is actually transportation of goods, and therefore you should be eligible for input tax credit. Now, as a added, you know, you can use an AR. We have this case law of the money carrying van, where first they lost the case, and then in the appellate advance ruling, they won the case, where for them, see, money is not goods. For the RBI, which is actually sending money to the banks. However, for the money carrying vans, it is goods, and therefore it was correctly held that, you know, you will be eligible for input tax credit. So again, here, delivery scooter or van, you will be eligible for input tax credit. Delivery scooter is a motor vehicle under the Motor Vehicle Act, and therefore we will have to fall into this and classify it as transportation of goods and claim input tax credit. Now other supplies, say we already talked of the central kitchen supplying to own restaurant is like stock transfer within the state transfer, but supplying to franchisees is sale of goods. Now let's say I am manufacturing bread. I am a very good bakery along with the restaurant. So to give you an example, we have I believe Oven Fresh in Dadar, where they have a large bakery also, and also they have a restaurant where they serve food. So to the extent of bread which is manufactured, now there are various types of bread, and everyone knows the criteria, pizza bread is attracting tax, roti does not attract tax, all that is there. So let's take a scenario, it's say normal bread which is not attracting tax. How are we to bifurcate this, and can I claim input tax credit on it? So here you have to do a pro rata bifurcation. To the extent of goods which are used in manufacturing bread, you will have to disallow credit, and to the extent which is used in the restaurant, and say it is situated in a specified premises, then you are eligible. But if you are not situated in a specified premises, then this question does not arise. This is where I am selling bread over the counter. This is not other, huh? This is just where I am selling bread over the counter, as well as I have a restaurant. Sale of used capital assets, say after 3 years of using large ovens, you are disposing of this asset. So if no ITC is claimed, then schedule, and if you are not even charging consideration, this schedule 1 cannot be triggered. However, if you are say charging consideration but credit was not claimed, then section 18(6) will not trigger, and we will be ending up paying tax on the output side only, on the transaction value. However, if you had claimed input tax credit, then you will have to refer 18(6) with rule 44(6) and accordingly check whether, based on the life of the asset per quarter, after reducing 2.5% per quarter, the value which comes and the tax on the transaction value which comes, whichever is higher, you will have to pay tax on it. I believe we already touched providing subsidized food to worker and office. Now coming to hotel accommodation. Hotel accommodation, now if you recall, before 2019 it was on declared tariff. However, that was creating more confusion, and based on the council's clarification and council's request, it is moved to value of supply. Now the entry reads supply of hotel accommodation having value of supply above 1,000, less than 7,500, then it is 12% with ITC. If it is above 7,500, then it is 18% with ITC. Below 1,000, it is exempted. Hotel accommodation is defined it is defined in the rate notification itself. It says means supply by way of accommodation in hotel, inn, guest house, club, campsites, or other commercial places meant for residential or lodging purpose, including supply of timeshare usage rights by way of accommodation. So now this issue was there of tariff rate versus catalog rate. Now the value of supply is to be offered. So any discount which is to be offered after it, then you have to determine in which category you fall. Earlier it was such that, if my declared tariff is say 1,500 rupees, and after discount I am paying tax at 950 rupees, then I still ended up paying tax at 12% because my declared tariff was above 1,000. But now it is based on value of supply. So after discounts is offered, if it is at 950, then it is exempted and I will not be paying tax at all. So based on it, you have to, based on the transaction value, the rate of tax will be determined. if say there is a corporate discount, say airline staff. So all these hotels which are situated near the airport, the airlines have entered into agreement with the hotel saying that, I will obtain say 100 room nights over the course of the next quarter, and this is and they have negotiated a rate. Then that rate, this is a committed pre-agreed rate, and on this rate tax will be offered, irrespective that if a walk-in customer comes and he say charge 5,000 rupees, but because this is a pre-agreed rate and I am charging say 3,000 rupees, will be paying tax 3,000. Obviously this if it includes say free breakfast, or it is American plan, European plan, all those plans, they are still remaining naturally bundled. This breakfast and accommodation was always an example even in our textbooks. Then this is a concept, this is naturally bundled. It continues to be naturally bundled, with the predominant element being accommodation, and based on what the value is charged, you will have to discharge tax on it. Now talking of, let's take an example. There are service charges included in per day tariff rate, say 15,000, which includes free airport pickup drop. So based on the contract which is entered today, or when you check in, that is all that will come. If it is naturally bundled, all that will come under the hotel accommodation service. However, if you are obtaining some other services, then they become an additional contract which is being entered and cannot be clubbed to the original supply. So for example, you are taking spa, you are making use of the internet cafe which is there, or the corporate place which is there. All these things, they are added, or you are obtaining or buying something from the mini fridge, or consuming something from the mini fridge. All these things, they are separate contracts which are entered, and therefore these are separate transactions and cannot be clubbed with the hotel accommodation service. So even if you recall, say when you eventually check out, there are these separate invoices which will come. One will be of accommodation along with your plan, say of plus breakfast, and then if you have obtained other services, say dinner service, say all these spa, there will be separate invoices and will be taxed separately. So this, I think we just discussed this business center and everything. This is what I was trying to claim. Yeah, I like to keep Dushan bhai, I like to keep, I think 10 minutes last for question answer. So after taking COVID points after this, I think we will just briefly touch on tour travel and then close for questioning.
Yeah, that's okay. I think that's okay.
Yeah.
But if you want to attend few questions related to our earlier topic, which you already covered, so
Yeah,
Vijay can.
Yeah, we can. So Kitri.
Yeah. Quickly, 2-3 questions are there. Abhijay?
Yeah, I'll take up the questions. So one is there, in case a free breakfast is given along with accommodation, so will it be taxable separately? I think that you have covered, but
Yeah.
if you want to just give any brief on how the invoicing and all will be done in such case.
So generally, today, let's say you entered into a contract today, you are booking that the plan says 4,000 rupees free breakfast for 2 nights, for example. Then it is accommodation in itself. You are going for staying. You're not going for eating the food. So the dominant intention or the principal supply here is always going to be hotel accommodation. The package is such that it includes free breakfast, and therefore it will be added. It is a composite supply, naturally bundled. It will be added, and accordingly say 4,000. So based on it, 4,000 comes under 12% rate. You will have to pay tax at 12%.
So on invoice, whether the hotelier is able to show that free breakfast or something, or is it not
We
required?
can show it. The HSN will continue to be
Of
accommodation.
principal supply only, right?
Correct. So it is like sale of goods along with transportation. Here again, even if transportation
Hello.
Other questions?
Yeah. So next is how to ensure that amount collected by a restaurant from customer as a composition tax are paid by them to the government. Any way out to just confirm this thing?
So now, see, this is.
I know it's not required though, but it's
Yeah,
just a
no,
question.
see,
sir.
it is no, of course. See, now if someone is cheating their way out and not declaring the entire cash sales, then even you and me, how will we be in a position to cater? Find it out. There are ways, and all. See, obviously, in a day you will be collecting huge amounts of money. So if that person is eventually depositing it in his bank account, then you can question him, and then you will come to know whether it is actually some other income which is come, or actually something of the restaurant somewhere. This is how you will have to catch hold.
In case a few common expenses of accommodation and restaurant services are there, then how will calculate the eligibility of ITC if the separate books are not maintained?
So then, see, basically you have to follow this 3-finger approach. If it is exclusively used
Right.
for something which is taxable, you are eligible for complete input tax. If it is exclusively used for something which is exempt in nature, then you have to completely disallow the credit. Now comes the question of common. So that is where you have to see. You will always know that this is 100% used for taxable, 100% used. So beach mein jo reh gaya, that is always going to be common. So to give you an example, say this is not related to restaurant, but just small example. You are manufacturing pencils and also manufacturing milk. Milk is exempt and pencil is taxable. You are using wood. So wood is not used in milk. So on it, full input tax credit is available. You are basically purchasing milk. So that is obviously exempt in nature. Then you are doing printing. So on the pencil, you are writing, say, Natraj. And on the theli of the milk, you are printing something. So then it becomes common in nature. You are using lead, then it is exclusively used for taxable. So these things you will have to do, and whatever is remaining common, that you will have to bifurcate.
Okay, so we have to follow
and follow rule 42-43.
Right. Okay. Next question is GST element on insurance premium or like repair charges of a delivery van used for supply of goods. Will it be eligible for set off?
So here the words used in 17.5 says, notwithstanding anything contained in respect of motor vehicle. So if you are eligible for credit, then you can also claim that. If you are not eligible, for claiming the main motor vehicle ka credit, then you cannot claim insurance and all.
I think this question came because of the amendment from after Feb 19, the way they have modified it. So maybe because of that, this question arises.
Probably, but the words above always is there in respect of, and you have to interpret in respect of strictly. So if it is in respect of motor vehicle, then you have to apply for each element. So everything you will have to apply.
Okay. In case if the customer order any in-house dining, will it be considered as restaurant services, or again it will be part of accommodation? Like how billing and everything will be done?
So it is a separate contract. First contract was entered, which included, say, free breakfast. Then
Right.
Now you are calling for room service and all. These are additional supplies or additional services which no one knew before entering into the contract. So this is a new contract, and therefore this will be restaurant services.
Restaurant services, right. In case the hotel is allowing the concession, say for the spa services and everything to a customer who take accommodation with them. So will there can be any issues which may arise on the valuation, because to the in-house customer, they are giving more concession. And if someone from outside just come for spa service, there is different charges for the same. So will there be any question arise on valuation, or we can go with the transaction value in that case?
No, if price is the sole consideration, they cannot, just because you are, they are basically creating sections where if you are in-house, you are exclusive member. They are just creating factions of it. So but this is like, you know, giving categories. A category gets this price, B category gets this price, C category gets this price. They cannot challenge it. If price is the sole consideration, then transaction value.
Okay. Next question is, can eatery in a mall opt for 18% GST or should it go for 5% mandatory? So what is your view on this? Hello?
Yeah. Can
Yeah,
I
so,
continue?
yeah, shall I repeat the question?
I could not hear the question. Sorry.
So can a eatery in a mall opt for 18% GST or it should go for 5% mandatory? What is your view on that?
No, in a mall, the eatery, na?
Yeah.
So there it is not in a specified premises. He cannot opt for 18%. How can he opt for 18%?
Okay, so only 5% option is there.
He does not have option of 18% at all.
Next question is, if we sell packaged mineral water bottle, say like Bisleri to the customer in restaurant of our resort, say for MRP of 50. So whether we should charge GST from customer on that water bottle, because it's again, the way you expense again a separate supply. It is not part of my original contract.
Correct. If you are selling it, it is simple thing like we explained. Biscuit just given as it is, and biscuit opened and given. That is it. So accordingly, we have to decide, and this is a separate contract.
And in case if say my bottle cost is actually MRP is 30 and I'm giving at 30 only to customer, then how the GST liability will vary in that case?
You have to charge on it, no transaction value. See,
Okay,
it
so
is
it will
quite
go on
possible.
transaction value. Okay.
See, it is quite possible you are buying in bulk. MRP
Right.
is 50. You may be buying it for 35.
Right.
Does not matter. And say you decide that, you know, you want to take a loss and give everyone at 10 rupees. Does not matter.
So whatever is the transaction value, based on that, you have to collect GST on the same.
But that is if you are selling it. If
Right.
you are giving it at a restaurant, in the restaurant, at the table, and whatever you charge, then it becomes restaurant service.
Right. Dushyant, I'm done with the questions. So in case if you have any other points, you can take
I
it up.
think no. I think he can take it further.
Okay. So now we'll talk of the combo offer, say membership of a club program, where, so let's say you have these membership programs of Accor, you have Leela, where they say you charge 20,000 rupees. If you pay this 20,000 rupees today, you can avail 2 nights free whenever you want. When you check in, you will get you also have some food vouchers. When you check in, you get some wine, some cake, and access to some gym, swimming. So how is this to be done? Now this is just an additional income, or this is additional revenue for the hotel. This is not accommodation service. This is a membership program. So this is membership which is being offered and not accommodation which is being offered. So this is a membership, and accordingly will be taxed at say 18%, which is of membership. Now we'll talk of the, I've created a case study of COVID-19. So we will take a look at it from the viewpoint of a tour operator, from the output side as well as the input side. Due to the pandemic, a lot of tour packages within and outside India got cancelled. In view of the same, we will discuss the GST implications from the point of view of the tour operator. Now, first on the output side, say that tour operator is cancelling and is giving full refund. What is to be done? So generally what happens is advance is received by the tour operator and he has already discharged tax on it, because we have to pay GST on advances received. Since full refund is there, there is no supply which is happening, and therefore we have now a circular also which was issued, circular number 137, which helps in our case, which says that if invoice was issued and GST is paid, you issue a credit note. If the credit note is not enough to cover the base credit note amount, then you can apply for refund directly. So say your output liability is 100, but your credit note is say 150 rupees, then you can instead of you can adjust some part and apply for excess payment of tax for the rest in your 3B. If invoice was not issued, generally which happens in this case, then you have to issue a refund voucher and directly go for any refund excess payment of tax through GST RFD 01. This is in a case where full refund is done. Now let's say a partial refund is done. The customer cancels that no, now COVID-19 is there and I don't want to take a risk, so I want to cancel. Based on the contract said, if you cancel within so and so percent, so and so days, so and so percent will cut. If you cancel within last 5 days, 40% will be cut, something like that. So some portion of it is being retained by the tour operator and the rest is refunded. So now how is this to be taxed? You have, as a tour operator, you have already discharged tax on it. Are you required to discharge tax on it? The question is yes or no. So now can you say you are tolerating the act of the customer cancelling and therefore you have to discharge tax on it? Now as a tour operator you may have discharged tax at 5%, but this tolerating act attracts 18%. So how is this to be viewed? Now we have a Delhi Sestat judgment of Lemon Tree Hotel, where basically some advances were received by Lemon Tree Hotel on booking of room. On cancellation, they retained the entire thing, they forfeited the entire thing. So the question was before the Delhi Sestat that whether service tax is liable on the amount forfeited by way of cancellation charges. It was held that the customers pay an amount to the appellant in order to avail hotel accommodation service and not for agreeing to or to tolerate an act or situation, and therefore the amount cannot be subject to service tax. Similarly here, there is no supply which is happened, so therefore this is just other income for the tour operator because it is in nature of damages and therefore cannot be subject to GST, and you will have to follow this circular 137, and if required you will have to apply for refund or adjust it in your 3B. If no refund is given but a document is given, so these airlines, everyone did this, they started giving this credit memo, voucher or document that you can use it in the next 1 year, you are eligible to use it, we will not give you any refund. So how is this to be done? Again, two separate things are happening. One is supply is not happening today, but it is being deferred, and for this deferral some voucher is being issued. So what would happen? You will actually close this advances received and give a refund voucher, then pass an entry for voucher issued. If it is identifiable today, you will have to pay tax today. If it is not identifiable today, you will have to pay tax when it is actually redeemed. So these entry, even though you just pass one entry in the books, these three basically activities will have to be done by you in your GST returns. So you will have to be closing the first contract. The second contract is basically supply of voucher, and based on if you can identify it or not, your time of supply will trigger and you will have to accordingly discharge tax on it. Coming to the input side of the tour operator, say the hotels are giving this credit note to be utilized. Same voucher is being given to the tour operator. Now we are looking at it from the inward side. So if hotels are giving these memos that to the tour operator, you can use it by the next financial year, what is to be done? Same thing is to be done. What would happen is if the hotel had issued an invoice to the tour operator might have already claimed input tax credit. Now the hotel operator will have in fact reverse the transaction. The tour operator will have to reverse the input tax credit. We'll have to obtain the voucher, and if voucher is identifiable, so in this case if hotel accommodation is going to be used against hotel accommodation only, if it identifiable, then you can, and if tax invoice is issued, then he will be in a position to claim the credit again. I agree, this is just a entry which is happening, but this steps have to be taken. If tour operator is opting for discharging GST at 18%, that is where he is eligible for input tax credit. All bookings are made by the tour operator, such as car booking, hotel, and they are forfeited by the respective service providers. Even credit notes are not issued, just lapsed. What is to be done? Now we already discussed, he is not eligible for input tax credit because one important portion of claiming input tax credit is not fulfilled. That is, the goods or service have to be received. So since they are not received, he will not be in a position to claim input tax credit. Since this is a loss to the tour operator and no money is also going to be retained, he will in fact have to make the case to the insurance company and also include this ITC in it, because it is going to be a loss to him. So I just have 5 minutes. So just a small finer point in tour operator service I will like to bring out before talking of efficiency in ITC management and concluding. So if you go through the entry of tour operator, there are two things given. One, in the description of service, they have defined tour operator, where they say tour operator means any person engaged in the business of planning, scheduling, organizing, arranging tour, which may include arrangement for accommodation, sightseeing, other similar services by any mode of transport, and includes any person engaged in business of operating tour. So here they are saying may. However, in the condition, if you refer to condition number 2, they are saying the bill issued for supply of this service indicates that is inclusive of charges of accommodation and transportation required for such a tour. So therefore, if I am a tour operator and I am just booking a hotel room, I will not be in a position to be charging tax at 5%, because there is no element of transportation. Just by adding some element of transportation, say airport pickup drop, just an example, there is transportation which is added, and then I am in a position to be charging 5%. So this is a very fine point. In fact, the industry, I believe, is not going through this. They believe that this is a drafting error, because one place they are writing may and here they are writing and. All tour operators are in fact charging 5% only. But this is, I believe, a very fine point, which I don't know, tomorrow might create an issue for some service providers. Coming to some efficiency in ITC management, how some these tour operators can be used for ensuring entire input tax credit is availed by the recipient. So for example, I am going on audit to Delhi. If I was to book my hotel sitting here, say I call Taj Delhi and I just Taj Vivanta Delhi and just book it. Taj, obviously the place of supply for Taj is going to be the location of immobile property. The location of the immobile property is Delhi. Therefore, he will be levying Delhi CGST and SGST. So my eligibility of credit becomes lost, and therefore it becomes a cost to me, and thereby gets added to the cost to the client. How this can be managed? You can approach a tour operator in Delhi. The tour operator will actually book the Delhi Taj hotel, and he will in fact be levying IGST to me as a tour operator. So in this way, you may be able to manage credit. Just because you are paying some additional 100-200 rupees as commission to the agent, that is not all. But this is in a manner where you can efficiently manage your ITC and not lose on this important credit. So this is some manner where you can manage your ITC and claim input tax credit. So with this, if we have any questions, we can take up the questions, and I can conclude. Thank you so much for a patient hearing, and thank you to Borivali CP Study Circle for giving me this opportunity. Yeah.
Bijal, how do you do? Because there are no questions on chat, either chat or Q&A. So if somebody wants to post or raise their hands for any questions or doubt still remaining, I mean, we have Umang to resolve or answer all those questions. I request once again to all the members, if they have some doubts, they can raise the hands or post their queries on Q&A. Yeah, I think Krunal Tatya sir is there. Bijal, if you can just allow him.
Yeah, just a second. Yeah, you can raise your question.
Mr. Krunal? Sometimes it's by error also, many times the raising of hands are there. So we give the, element of doubt here. All right. Any other member? I think Vijay, you had also some 1 or 2 questions.
No, my answer.
It is already answered.
Yeah, I already covered while taking care.
All right. All right. So I think again, let me take, because there are not enough members initially, but there are few announcements, 2 or 3. Aman, I will once again request you, or I'll rather bother you for forecasting those for the benefits of members. So friends, we have important announcements. One is tomorrow we have a physical meeting at Bhatiyawadi. As you know, that venue is known to all of us because we are arranging by long time. So it is on amendments and issues under 44 AD and reporting and issues in reporting under important clauses in Form 3CD, which is very important topic. We have our own in-house speaker, CS Sharath Seth, who is renowned and quite experienced, and eminent speaker CS Sanjeev Lalan, and 2 important meetings on our own students and articles. Again, jointly with WRC. So those are also important topics, day-to-day topics for articles, and I request once again all our members, to give a concession or to offer them free, because at BCSC, at WRC, we had to have some charge. So the fees are very nominal, just coverage of the rental or maybe, the next parts, which is 300 rupees, the first meeting, and the second meeting seminar is also the same way. The topics are very, very, very handy and very important one for them to learn, sort of an orientation for them, and which will help them during their articleship, serving our clients and also few of our members. So, and I think these are all available on the website, and we'll also announce by emails and handouts. So coming to today's topic, Umang, nicely you covered almost all the sectors and covering the intricacies of various small issues which are very important. And we know that while serving to our clients or while advising them, a very crucial matter comes up. By tips or, whether there is a volition, whether it is to be included in valuation. So a lot of members have realized that it is not only 5 or 18% or 12% or with or without ITC as we read it, but, fine tuning them, understanding them in a sense with, mapping with the law, which is quite important to just, resolve few litigation in the future. I will straight away request Aman to Giriraj to propose well-deserved vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dushyant Bhai, for giving me this opportunity to propose a hearty vote of thanks to the learned speaker. Members will agree that CA Umang Talati has tried to give maximum justification to the subject allotted to him, and his presentation was excellent. He has answered all questions raised by members. You all will agree that his session will definitely help us in our day-to-day practice. And I think members will see the bill before making the payment in restaurant also. I request all the members to join hands for round applause to CA Umang Talati.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Umang.
Thank you, Umang.
Thank
Thank you, Umang. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are concluding. Thank you, Umang.
Thank you.
Thank you. Aman, you can close.